Today I want to share with you guys what is the Ketu in first house and Rahu in seventh house trying to tell you. So Ketu or South Node in the first house. Okay, let me explain what exactly is the first house first. When it comes to first house, it's about pioneering or visualizing yourself hosting gatherings, right? And this is a very because you're the one being the initiator. These gatherings tend to manifest in the physical form of competitions or parties, and so this is very important. Competition gathers people. Um, Parties gathers people, and so first house is essentially about competition or parties or trying to stand out, etc. And so self note mean you probably have deal with it a lot of these kinds of opportunities in the maybe in earlier in this life or most likely in the past life. And so a good way to approach the South Node first house or Ketu first house is about trying to have right mindfulness and sensitivity, right? Because in competitions or in parties, people tend to use noise or kind of like evasive speech to try to manipulate how they're being perceived. Right now, this is not obviously not always intended to do that. Most people don't intend to do that, but there's a subconscious undercurrent that there's a underlying manipulation of how you want to be perceived. Right? And so it is pretty important to be mindful about your thoughts when you're trying to manipulate a narrative to over exaggerate what your qualities are. So it's very important. So first of all is to not to if there's no invitation to a party, try to avoid it, because especially parties, it's not something like initiation of gatherings, like let's say initiation of visualization of a self-image, right? Which at least while there are some, I believe there are some subtle forms of conceit, it's way less harmful overall compared to something like initiation of parties, right? Or like being invited and try to control the flow of the party, right? And that is, kind of the former is kind of way less harmful than the latter. So something like this, you should try to avoid if you avoid trying to proactively participate in parties if you don't have the invitation, right? If you have the invitation, then try to be mindful about your thoughts and perceptions when it comes to your narrative, when it comes to your speech, because every time you try to kind of stuck into the past patterns of trying to, in a way of how you deal with parties, every time you try to control the flow, you tend to manipulate people's perception or narrative about you. And different people, depending on the sign, different people have different methods of controlling the flow of the party or a contest, and so it is really important to be mindful about it, right? It's good to either be humble about it or either to be mindful about your thoughts, right? And so that's important. Honestly, this is just something I put it up on the spot. I know the exact words about how do you exactly apply your life lesson healthily, but I may need more time to put it into more easy to understand words, is what I'm trying to say. Now, what about after I have discussed about or elaborate about the Ketu in first house, what about the Rahu in seventh house? Right, unlike the first house, which is more initiating, seventh house is more like a following, right? It's more like following fifth house ideals, right? It's about visual, following people who tends to have a lot of ideas about visualizing themselves being successful in building their integrity, their character, their sense of composure, their mannerisms, and try to have pure intentions when people make mistakes, right? When those people make mistakes, right? Those pioneers about when they visualize something and they try to build their character, their mannerisms, their image. If they fail, right? Obviously, you should try to criticize them, but try to like. It's kind of like a seventh house. Is the life lesson is more like try to explore, try to be more patient, resilient, try to try to be tranquil about it, try to be sensitive about their feelings, their thoughts, and to communicate with them what they, and then try to help with what they need to build their image, right? In the most straightforward way, right? Build their image, character, etc. And also be harmless and not abuse about it. Because sometimes, this is just from the chart, I don't know if there's any real life experience, but at least I can imagine there could be a few cases where people would try to in order to force other people to become good people, try to virtue signaling, that they will try to physically abuse another person, right? This is very common in the Eastern education, but like I believe even in the West or in other parts of the world, they are things like these appear all over the world. So I think it's important to maintain your integrity and having pure intentions, and to explore what are skillful intentions or what are not what are unskillful intentions when it comes to helping people visualize their character, mannerisms, or a sense of composure or integrity. And it's also, if you have your own ideals when it comes to what kind of character do you want to build, right? Being a high work ethic person, being a person who cherishes life, for example, right? There are different kinds of mannerisms and character. Being someone who is deeply well versed in meditation, integrity, wisdom, etc., anger management, etc. And so this is important for you to explore either about your ideals when it comes to building new character, or other people's ideals, is to try to do it the right way. So this is essentially the core principle and life lesson of the Rahu, or North Node, in the seventh house. So this is the end of today's video. Thank you very much.